Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Django.
Welcome.
So lovely to be here with you. Some of you were here for my last talk when I played the didgeridoo to start things off. Now, this time I didn't lug my didgeridoo in, but I brought something else to get us started. This is a little instrument here. This is called a mouth harp, and it's also known by other names. It's called the jaw harp. Some people call it the Jew's harp. But I want to start us out before I give the talk with just an opportunity to do a hear-out practice from the Unified Mindfulness System, which means we're going to turn our attention to auditory sensations, particularly coming from this instrument. So we'll get a little taste of a sound, and then from there we'll go for the talk, but we'll kind of attune ourselves with this sound, and I'll do my best. Kind of fun. $10 on the internet. Comes with a case. So as Django mentioned, and you may have seen from the email announcement, the title of the talk is Awakening Leadership for the 21st Century. So I thought it would be appropriate to really first just thank the contemplative leaders in my life, the two main ones being Soryu Forall and Shinzen Young, and then also Peter Park, who've really greatly impacted me. They are 21st century contemplative leaders, and many of the ideas and the things that I'll talk about tonight are deeply influenced by them. So thank you to them, and also sort of a caveat that many of these ideas you may have heard already from other people. I'm not claiming that I've totally made them up myself, but yeah, the real point of this talk is that I put forth, I will claim and state that we need contemplative leaders here in the 21st century. People who are trained in both the leadership skills of getting out there, changing lives, making an impact, and improving the world, but also who come from a background of contemplative practice, what we call awakening, the letting go, the meditation, the transcendent aspect of actually seeing the true nature of reality. So that's where I'm coming from this talk. And within that context, that's really the goal of what we're trying to do out at the Monastic Academy. Django mentioned we're a full-time mindfulness and leadership training program. We live there, we train there. We're learning skills about how to run a nonprofit and build a community and work with each other, how to do 21st century things. Like a lot of my job is sitting looking at QuickBooks every day, logging in. Oh, here's the donations coming in. Here's the money I have to pay out for the bills, and here's the taxes. And these are 21st century skills integrated with mindfulness, integrated with the contemplative practice. And this is really what I believe that we need. And I'm placing particular emphasis on this. I mean, I know in a lot of ways I'm kind of preaching to the choir, but really this isn't a culturally acknowledged statement that I'm making. Most people, and maybe some people in this room, I don't know, just like this would be completely foreign, new idea. So I feel the need to talk about it because I think it's important. And yeah. So I want to start with a bit of a story. We have some guests that come frequently to the Monastic Academy. Many of you here have been to our different events, our retreats. You've done solo retreats. Yeah, so we had a guest recently, and he's from out in California, and they have a lot of tech stuff going on there in the Bay Area. They have all the big technology companies, and it's sort of where a lot of the tech scene is based. So we had a guest from there, and I was talking to him about different ideas, and we started talking about this movement known as transhumanism. And it's this idea that we'll use technology to augment ourselves, and that we'll eventually be able to get to a state of happiness because we'll be able to get what we want by using technology. We'll become able to think of something and then it appears, like a replicator on Star Trek. I don't know if you have Star Trek nerds. They could push a button and they say, cup of Earl Grey tea, and then a cup of steaming hot tea would appear. And so this transhumanism movement is really about we'll have this advanced technology, and then whatever we can desire will just appear, and that will lead to happiness. And so I was discussing this with this person. Something about it was just bugging me. I was like, what is this? And I realized that this whole thing of transhumanism seems to be in many ways based on the assumption that if we get what we desire, what we crave, then we'll become happy. And looking back, in many ways, I was like, let's assess the technology situation today. So if we were to go back in time, say to a few hundred years ago, or especially 1,000 years ago, a couple thousand years ago, whatever, go back in time with the technology that we have today. I mean, even you go back to your great-great-great-grandparents, whatever, their minds would be absolutely blown if we were to tell them things like, hey, I can look through this little portal and I can there's a thing called Google Earth, and I can go to it and I can zoom in on my uncle's house in Kansas, in rural Kansas, and I can zoom in and actually see the house from the street, or I can zoom out, or I can push some more buttons and I can see my uncle's face from across the country, or maybe all the way over in Australia, and I can talk to them. I can communicate. I can hop in this strange metal bird and fly across the world in a few days. I can be all the way around and back. I can go to a hospital if I'm not feeling well, this thing called a hospital, and they'll give me pills, and suddenly I'll be right as rain. I'll live for a long time. And it's like these are astounding technological achievements. It's almost like we've become like these demigod beings that can achieve these incredible feats. And yet, we're not happy. If you look at objective measures of happiness, it's not there. So this idea that we'll continue to chase after what we want, we're delaying our happiness until more technology comes. We're chasing this. And yet this is like a dominant view in our society that by getting what we want, we're going to feel good. And that will be good, and that will make us happy. And yet at the same time, even with the rise in this technology, we're seeing all sorts of nasty stuff. I mean, you look at the news, wow, it's almost scary to even talk about it, but we're seeing environmental devastation. We're seeing bigotry on the rise again. We're seeing just like divisiveness and instability, xenophobia, all this stuff that it's like, gosh, didn't we get over this? No, we're still mired in it. Even though we have all this technology, even though, many of us have all this opulence, the happiness just hasn't followed by look at social scientists, they'll agree with this. So we've got it backwards. We think that we have these desires, and we think that, okay, if we fulfill them, if we fulfill these cravings, if we fulfill these grasping urges, then we'll be happy. But it's really like playing whack-a-mole, because you do one thing and you get the thing that you thought was make, and then immediately you're already looking at the next thing, and you haven't even really enjoyed the thing that you got. That's my experience. I have this thing where I'm like, I'll want something really bad. I'll want a meal. I want a meal so bad. I want a meal. And then even before I'm done eating the meal, I'm already thinking about the next thing. Oh, after this, I get to go to the movie. I get to see the movie. And then I'm watching the movie and I'm already, I can't wait to get home and get to bed. I can't wait to get to bed. And it's like, this hamster wheel of chasing these desires. And as we chase the desires, we're also doing damage to others. Like, oh, I really want to have this certain food. Gotta have this food. And it turns out that that food is, maybe it's beef that's being produced from clear cutting the rainforest. And then that's being shipped up here, causing environmental harm. And then we eat it, and what do we get from it? Some sort of momentary blip of relief from the craving of wanting the food. And in the meantime, we're wiping out ecosystems and species are going under. It's a little dark, heavy, I know, I'm sorry. But I'm trying to be real. This might lighten it up a little bit. On my mother's side, there's this little rhyme that some of you have made. It's maybe you've heard me say before. It's one of my favorites, but it goes like this. As a rule, man's a fool. When it's hot, he wants it cool. When it's cool, he wants it hot, always wanting what is not. We're always chasing around these desires. We're ruled by them. And in the meantime, we end up ignoring what's really important and harming others. And that's sad. So it's like, what do we do with that? There's this YouTube video that I remember from years ago. There's fried butter, a stick of butter at a state fair. It's fried. They put it in dough and like batter, and they fry it. And they just show this video of this little kid, and he's, this young kid, and it's like, here, eat this thing, this fried butter, and he's eating it. And even then, he's like, it's okay, It's like this decadence, this opulence that you would think it'd be like, wow, this is amazing. And in reality, it's just like, it just doesn't cut it. So it's like, where do we go with that? It's like, wow, is this just all pessimism? Is Pan just like dragging me through the mud here? And the other thing is like, our economy is really built on this too. So there are these economic forces that are encouraging us to continue to crave, to continue to want more, because that's how they sell you things. I saw a commercial the other day. I think it popped up on my YouTube. It was like, oh yeah, it was on my YouTube, and it was this Barbie playhouse, and it was just so bizarre to me because I don't watch too much TV. So when I see it, I'm like, whoa, I was not prepared for that, And it's this like pink monstrosity of a playhouse, plastic, and they're like, oh, there's so many rooms. And it's like Barbie is going, it's like this pink playhouse is like what these kids see, and they're like, oh, that's what I need in real life, to have this big giant house with, all these special fancy limousines and cars and convertibles, not limousines. So it's like we're conditioned from a young age to have that. I think of myself, like to me, a really clear example of this craving, this desire is smoking cigarettes. And it's weird to me because like we use this term addiction in our society, and like I'm no expert in addiction other than my own experience. But like it's almost as if like addiction is like a spectrum, like craving that we have, these patterns of craving that we have are like mild forms of addiction, even if they seem like really, kind of just small and benevolent. It's like, it almost seems to be coming from a very similar place of like what we consider to be, oh, you're an addict. But it's like, I want to own that I have my own minor addictions within me, all sorts of things. But I think back to when I used to smoke cigarettes, and this is just such a blatant example of the bottomless pit of desire. Got to get that fix, that cigarette, and then I'm really not even getting something pleasurable. I'm just trying to cease the suffering that I have of craving. The craving itself is suffering. It's not that, oh, I want this fun, happy thing. It's like, I want to make this icky feeling of craving and desire go away. And I suspect that is actually underlying many, or maybe all, I don't know, of our cravings that we have. Is actually not like we want something. It's actually that like, it's like the reverse of that. We want the we want the desire to go away so that we will not feel the discomfort of the desire. And that's certainly how it was for me with cigarette addiction. It was like, I just want this feeling to go away, and the only way I know how to do that is to smoke. And then once I do that, it's only a matter of, time, maybe a couple hours before that exact thing comes back, and I'm back on the hamster wheel. Whew, some heavy stuff. And I also don't want to I don't want to shame people for having this. I don't want to say we are bad. I don't think that that's the case. I think it's just something that both we're conditioned to have, and maybe it's that's the nurture, and maybe there's also this sort of nature in us that I don't believe is permanent, because I don't believe it's our true nature. But it's just something that at least I'm working through, and I think others are too. So it's what do we do with this? Is this all just doom and gloom, And really, the truth of it, as far as I can see, is that the way that we go beyond this is not by feeding our desires more and more and trying to change the conditions around us to meet our desires, but it's actually by letting go of the desire itself. It's by going beyond desire that we can overcome it. And that's where meditation comes in. So by letting go of this selfishness, these little likes and dislikes, we transcend them. And a big part of that comes from contemplative practice. Just in my own practice, sitting, and suddenly a desire comes up and I want something. And I'm sitting with that. And I'm able to see it come up. I'm able to see it, and sometimes it's real subtle and seductive. Sometimes it's nasty, clawing, grasping at me, trying to, So it comes up, and man, it can be tough. And just being with it. Oh, wow. Just being present, allowing it to work itself through. And sometimes I cave into it, but then there's other times where I'm with it long enough that it sort of runs out of energy. Maybe a little kid who's throwing a tantrum, and they and then eventually they just they don't have the energy to keep throwing the tantrum. And that's kind of what it's like. It's this pattern. And then it breaks up, and then it's oh, okay, well, cool. That's a little taste of liberation. I'm no longer a slave to that pattern, at least in this exact instance. Its power over me has been diminished through meditation. And that's hopeful to me. That's okay, hey, it seems like maybe this is a path out. And, I used to think that these kinds of things were me. It's this is me. And through meditation, I've begun to see this is fleeting. This is ephemeral. This is not my essence. This is just this thing that's happening, but it does not define me. I am not bound by it. And I think this is a good time to say too that I'm not claiming to have transcended all of my own craving. I don't want to make that claim. I just want to be clear. I'm on this path as well. But I have tasted hints of this, and I'm very encouraged by it. So from there, this gets even more interesting. Because what about somebody who has gone beyond, who has successfully gone beyond being a slave to their desires? Well, that's somebody that you can trust. Because at the end of the day, somebody that is a slave to their desires, you know that if push comes to shove, if they have a deep enough desire, they will forgo doing what's right. They will turn their back on those they love even to fulfill that desire. I mean, I think of an addict. I don't blame the addict, but their condition makes it so that they will do whatever it takes, whether it's lie, cheat, steal, or whatever else, to feed that addiction. And to an extent, that same nature of addiction, that's not our fundamental nature, but that way of being, I believe, is with us. It's with me. And But if that can be transcended, well, then that's somebody that we could trust. That's somebody that we could put our faith in. And that's exciting. And so as we move away from this like small little selfish world of desires that we're living in, and we let that go, then we can look around and say, oh, okay, well, now I can see where other people are coming from. I can identify with them, and I can hopefully help them, because I don't need to fulfill my desires anymore. I don't need to fulfill my addictions anymore. So I can use my energy to go and be of service to others. That's cool. That's exciting to me. That's the kind of leader that I'd be looking for. And beyond that, as we get out of our own need to constantly be worrying about ourselves, constantly be feeding our selfishness, our selfish cravings, then we're freed up to become more deeply aware of our own nature of compassion, of caring about others, of the interconnectedness of life. It's like we get out of our own little tunnel vision and wow, this world is beautiful. And so therefore, those are the people that I'm interested in trusting. But we can't think our way out of it. This isn't like an intellectual exercise where we can just say, okay, I'm going to decide to transcend my addictive patterns. No, that unfortunately doesn't work. That'd be great if we could just, say that and be done. Like, know it. You can't just know it. I'm making that claim. We have to go through the process of meditation, contemplative practice. We have to work through it. We have to be with this. We have to dance this. We have to experience it directly. And that's where the transformation comes from. It'd be nice if we could just read it in a book and then, then we'd be good to go. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So here we are. I used to think that technology would save us. I remember it must have been about a decade ago when I was in college. It was like, oh great, we're getting more technology, the internet, people will get education, they'll know more things, and therefore the world will be better. But here we are in 2018, and in fact, that very technology that we thought would bring us to a happy society is actually giving voice to people saying nasty things, misinformation, and all kinds of other darkness. So it's not just knowing things, it's actually going through the experience. And I also am very supportive of learning and education as well, but that alone, it seems, is not enough. We have to walk this walk. Can't just think our way out of it. I had a little bit of do I want to share it? Yeah. So as I was preparing this talk, right before you all were coming in, I had this gross but maybe good metaphor of meditation is if you've had a tapeworm for your life, and if you have a tapeworm, you're eating and eating and you can't get full, and then you are weak and malnourished, and then the way to get it, there's a couple ways to get rid of a tapeworm, right? One of them is you can just take a pill and it'll go away. But another one that's even grosser is you can starve yourself for several days, and then the tapeworm will start getting really hungry. And then, so imagine that we didn't have the pill, because it doesn't seem like we have a pill. So it's maybe the starving of the tapeworm is meditation, and then you put a little piece of, this is a little gross, sorry, plug your ears if you need to. You put a little piece of raw meat in the back of your tongue, and the tapeworm will actually crawl up your mouth, and you can grab it and pull it out. And then it's this nasty, sometimes difficult process. Yeah, it's right. Yeah, right. It's whoa, this isn't everybody told me meditation would be so relaxing, man. But we go through this process, and and then it's whoa, I didn't know I'm healthy again. I'm full of energy and power, and I'm not feeding this thing that I didn't even know. And then when I saw it, I, didn't know how to get rid of it. But here we go. So it's that to me is a process of insight, is a tapeworm. Sorry about that. But yeah, we also, we walk around with cultural assumptions all the time. We have these views that we take on that cloud our vision and just block us from really seeing what's really going on in the world. There's like, I think of this example of, I spent a lot of my life as a climate activist, and I worked for environmental groups like the National Wildlife Federation. And I'd tell people, hey, climate change, this is a big deal. And I'm talking, I'd be in like North Dakota, number 2 Trump supporting state, fighting to be number 1. And I tell people, whoa, climate change, this is a really big deal. We've got, we're destroying our planet, we're threatening life on Earth. And these folks who, these are good people, I'm not saying they're evil, but they have this certain idea that there's this way that government should be, that's economic libertarianism, where the government should not do anything, is the basic idea. The government should have a military and, maybe have police, but that's it. No environmental protection. So there's this like fixed view, this like perspective that is held tightly and clung to. And everything is seen through this lens. And so when new information comes along, like, hey, we're in danger, our planet is going to crap, it's like, no, that does not fit into the worldview, and therefore it is just rejected. Despite science, despite facts, despite information, it's rejected out of ideology. And then that, you can see the harm that causes. And really, like, those kinds of filters, we all have them. These, like, I have them at least. I know that I walk around with them. And meditation is like the one practice that helps me to get beyond them, that allows me to just be with something as it is, really observing it, dropping the story, dropping the narrative, and just being. And that's an excellent practice for how to be in the world. Through meditation, it's allowed me to actually be present with people and listen to them and hear them, instead of constantly being ready to defend myself and ready to tell a story and ready to, with a quick comeback. So it's that contemplative practice that has allowed me to find this new way of being, or at least be closer to it, which is really exciting to me. Yeah. And so, that's why I think our leaders need to have this contemplative practice. And this isn't a new idea. This has been around, of course, in Buddhist culture, and also in the West, like the philosopher kings was an idea put forth by Plato. And we say kings, but actually he talked about both men and women. He said, like, I will be criticized for this, but I'm going to include women too, which, like, good job, Plato. So I might have said Socrates. This is Plato. So he details in the Republic. I even have a little thing written from it here. So he details in the Republic, like, basically the very same idea that we're talking about with that we see in Eastern culture, this contemplative culture. But he details this too. He says, the key notion of the philosopher king is that a philosopher is the only person who can be trusted to rule well. Philosophers are both morally and intellectually suited to rule. Morally, because it is their nature to love truth and learning. So, like, to me, that's what meditation is like truth, learning. We're examining something. We're being with a phenomena. We're getting deeper into its true essence by being with it, by staying with it, by being present with it in a deeper way than ever before. So they love truth and learning. And by the way, to the Greeks, philosophy was not this dry intellectual exercise that it is today, but it was actually much more of like a mystical experience. So they love truth and learning so much that they are free from the greed and lust that tempts others to abuse power and intellectually, because they alone can gain full knowledge of reality. Sounds a little bit like Buddhism. And then there's more about how they go through a demanding education so that they can use their gained knowledge of goodness and virtue to help other citizens achieve these so far as possible. And really, like, that to me is like a lot of what we're doing at the Monastic Academy, is like we're going through this rigorous process of meditation and then back to leadership, running this organization, holding a community, being with each other, communicating, having complex projects to solve problems, and then back into the contemplative, and then fusing the two together. So that's really what we're doing at the Monastic Academy. Oh man, I have so many more fun things I'd love to talk about and stories that I'd love to share, but really, just to wrap it up, like the ones who do not crave power are the very ones that should be in power. And the final example I'll leave you with is this sort of almost like ingrained into our psyche, archetypal maybe tale of like the rebels who face an unjust government or an oppressor, and they rise up and they overthrow this oppressor only to become even worse tyrants once they're in power. And the reason being that the tyranny comes from the state of the human mind. Our entire society is crafted from the mind states that we inhabit. And until we purify those mind states through contemplative practice, we are doomed to repeat the same mistakes and become the very tyrants that we once sought to depose. Cool. I gotta say one more thing. There's this great Sheryl Crow. I don't know. I was really against Sheryl Crow for a long time. I just didn't like her. She did this thing with Kid Rock, and I didn't like that. But then it was like I was just thinking about this song lyric from "Soak Up the Sun," one of her more famous songs. It's "Soak up the sun," and she goes, "I ain't got digital. I ain't got diddly squat. It's not getting what you want. It's wanting what you got." I like that. I didn't used to like it. Now I appreciate it. So, with that, let's do some of the contemplative practice that we've been talking about. So, go ahead and find a posture that's both relaxed and alert. Whatever works for your body to foster a sense of ease, but also being present and aware. And turn your attention to felt experiences, somatic experiences in your body. Any sort of physical or emotional experience that you're having. Note any physical or emotional somatic experience. Acknowledge its presence and then briefly focus on it. And then do that again. And you may find yourself moving from one feeling, one bodily sensation to another, or maybe just staying with one that calls to you again and again. Either way is fine. Just be with any somatic experience, any sensation in the body that calls to you. Allow yourself to observe, examine, and explore these sensations. These somatic experiences, these sensations may be pleasant or unpleasant. They may be changing and flowing, or they may be stable. They may be expanding, contracting, or moving. Or maybe there's almost no sensation at all. Any of these are okay. Simply allow whatever is arising to come and go without push or pull. Good. Now, if you like, continue tracking somatic sensations and noting them, but add a label of feeling or feel by saying the word feeling or feel silently to yourself whenever you notice one of these felt sensations. You can use the label feeling or feel. Maybe create a rhythm every 1 to 3 seconds, saying to yourself, feeling, or feel, whenever you're with a felt sensation. Or if a new felt sensation arises, you can immediately label it. Feeling, feel. But the labels are optional. Just stay with the somatic experience wherever it arises and calls to you. If you get distracted, just gently come back to emotional or physical sensations in the body. Labeling feeling or feel. Good. Now, shift your focus space to visual sensations. And if you like, you can do this with your eyes open or closed, either is fine. But turn your attention to noting visual phenomena. And this can be things that you're seeing in the objective world, the world of forms, or this can be visual phenomena in your mind's eye. If you have your eyes open, you're more likely to see objective visual phenomena. With your eyes closed, you'll likely see a gray screen of some kind. Maybe there's a shimmering, and there may be visual images that come subjectively into your mind's eye. Either is completely valid, but turn away from somatic experience towards visual experience and make that your object of focus. You may be drawn to one stable image, or perhaps your attention is drawn from one visual phenomena to another. You may see the blank screen behind your eyes, or you may see fleeting images, ghostly, shimmering images in your mind's eye. All of these are within the focus range. All of these are good. Just stay with observing visual phenomena. And as you continue to note visual phenomena, you can add the label seeing or see. Saying to yourself, seeing or see, whichever feels better, as you acknowledge and briefly focus on a visual phenomena. And then maybe staying with that phenomenon, maybe going to another. And saying to yourself, seeing, 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 or see, 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 see. In each moment, being present with the visual phenomenon, being fully present, acknowledging, focusing on it, and then moving on to a different visual experience or staying with the same visual experience as you're called. Good. Now, expand your focus space to include both visual and somatic experience, both seeing and feeling. Whichever calls to you, a visual experience, a felt experience, maybe both at once. Allow your attention to go to somatic and visual experience. Maybe you're primarily drawn to feelings in the body. Maybe you're primarily drawn to images in the mind's eye. Either is okay. Maybe you're drawn back and forth between seeing and feeling and then back to seeing again. That's okay too. And continue to use the labels seeing and feeling, or see or feel. Using your discernment, is this a felt experience, a somatic experience, or is this a visual experience? And then applying the appropriate label by stating see or feel. In a moment, I'm going to ring a bell. We'll have a short period for movement, getting water, going to the bathroom. But it should not be considered a break. During this time, continue to practice noting visual and felt experiences. And if you like, continue labeling them seeing, feeling, or see, feel. Maintain your technique, and we'll take a 4-minute movement period. Continue the practice of noting visual and somatic experience, seen and felt experience, applying the labels seeing, feeling, or see, feel when appropriate. Good. Continue noting visual and somatic experience, but broaden your focus space to include auditory experience as well. Hearing, whether it's sounds in the room or elsewhere in the objective auditory experience, or inner voices or tunes, music, sounds internally or subjectively. And you can label these auditory experiences as hear or hearing. Any visual, somatic, or auditory experience, any seen, felt, or heard experience is good. Note it by bringing your awareness to it and then focusing on it briefly, labeling it, see, hear, or feel. And then moving on to the next, whether it's a new experience arising or maybe the same experience that you're staying with. Note, see, hear, feel. Very good. Now, if you like, you have a choice. You can drop the labels and just continue to observe visual, somatic, and auditory experience. Or you can keep the current labeling of see, hear, feel, or if you like, seeing, hearing, feeling. If you have momentum with either of these, you may continue. Or you can try something new. If you like, use the process of labeling to, in detail, describe exactly what you're experiencing. So it might sound something like this. Experiencing tension in shoulders, foot, cold, seeing screen, face, feeling, sound of clock ticking, back, feeling neck, seeing red color, right leg twitching, hearing, feeling movement in belly. Creating a detailed description, a real-time narrative of your experience. Wherever you're at right now, describing it, and then describing the next thing, and the next thing. Pain in right leg, white sock, brown table, shiny brown, fear experiencing, saliva, left side of mouth, eye itching, nose, black shirt. Describing in detail the sensations. If this is frustrating or overwhelming, that's okay. You can simply go back to labeling see, hear, feel, or no labels at all. But if you like, enjoy the challenge of describing your real-time experience in as much detail as possible while moving forward with each new experience. coolness on the skin, brown color, toes, oil, images of a train itching on the right shoulder, nose cold, pain in chest, clock ticks, still ticking, space between each ticking sound. Stay with it. Whatever your experience is right now, stay with it. And allow for the next and the next and the next. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? What is it like? Where is it? Describe that. And for these last few minutes, just drop any labels. Let go of the descriptions, let go of the labels, and just be with seeing, hearing, feeling experience. No need to describe, no need to label, just be. So now we'll move into a time for sharing, reflections, reports. You can ask questions of me or whatever else you'd like. Time is yours.
Can I share something?
Yeah, sorry.
I found with the extensive designer labeling that I could concentrate so much longer,
Mm.
like 20 times longer than I could usually concentrate without labeling, even with like simple labeling. So that's pretty amazing. But I did also find that the depth with which you can go to the sensations is probably limited because you're so caught up in thinking about describing, at least at first. And I was wondering, do you have a similar experience, and what kind of benefits have you experienced with that technique?
Yeah, thank you for the report. So the part you're referencing is the part we did towards the end where you're adding the description, and that's great that you found a lot more you're able to concentrate. That's really cool. Yeah, the main benefit that that I see from having done this practice myself is that it really increases sensory clarity, particularly the ability to untangle your experience in real time. So it's like, what am I experiencing exactly? Where is it? What are its qualities? It's like zooming in on it, penetrating it, and then being able to kind of pull the strands apart from different types of experience. Also the concentration piece as well, because essentially you're forcing yourself to concentrate because you have to give this detailed description. So if you start zoning out, then you get real-time feedback because your description stops. So as soon as you notice, oh, I'm not doing this description, I'm lost in a thought or somewhere else, then you quickly realize that and have to come back. It requires almost effortful, interactive presence. Those are the benefits that I've seen. In terms of you say the depth.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I've found with it is that for me, I go through a phase where I feel like I'm like just like kind of like running through a maze, and I have to turn left and right and jump over obstacles, and like it's kind of like effortful. But there comes a point, at least like what I found doing this numerous times, is there seems to come a point where there's just a dropping into a more fluid and effortless describing. And so it's like, it's like that just kind of takes over. And it's like a flow, there's this term called the flow state, not the way that Shinzen uses flow to describe change, but it's sort of this way of being where you're really locked in and there's like a spontaneity coming from you. And there's these descriptions that just sort of arise, and new experiences come and go, and there's just descriptions flowing from you almost naturally. And to me, that's the deepening with this particular technique.
Right, yeah. I sometimes felt like a lot of my energy was bound up in like thinking about how to describe it. So I considered maybe if I had sort of like see, hear, feel, a stricter way of doing designer labeling. So like seeing flashing blue dot, like, or like make sure that whenever I see something inwards, like I always label it in the same way so it can be more flowing. Did you come up with something like that, or did it just happen and you constantly describe things the same thing in a different way? If you know what I mean.
So one thing I think I'm hearing from you, so you're saying like seeing a flashing blue dot. So you're saying like using seeing, hearing, and feeling as sort of ways to rein it in a little? Is that what I'm hearing, or is that different?
I'm just wondering, right? Say that you've had the same sensation, whether it's flashing blue dot or cold foot.
Yeah.
Would you always describe it as cold foot?
Okay.
Or would you say something like, here's an example, like the exact location. Like sometimes I could say feeling twitch in back.
Yeah.
Or the same twitch happened later.
Yeah.
And I would be like feeling twitch in right lower back. And there was some energy went into making that decision.
Yeah. I think these are things to play with. I think looking back, just to like give myself a critique, I wish that I had said something more about it's okay to label the same thing over and over again. I remember when I started labeling early in my meditation career, like I thought that I had to label something different every time and that it like wasn't okay to stay with the same phenomenon. So I apologize if that didn't come through clearly. But yeah, it's definitely okay to just stay with the same thing and, you know, you can either describe it with different words if you want to try and get different angles and to keep yourself really present, or maybe you just white post, white post, white post, white post. Or maybe, you know, white post, seeing angle of it, light shining off it, triangular, you know, you can do it in different ways.
Right, yeah.
I think to me, the key is not getting too caught up, or it's not the key, but one tip is not getting too caught up in like, am I describing it correctly? But just really letting the descriptions kind of tumble out of you and not getting caught up in remembering previous descriptions and critiquing them. Like, ooh, did I describe that thing right that I just said? Or, oh, maybe I should have said it this way or that way. That's a trap. And I think the same is actually true with many different focus spaces. Like, you can fall into the same pit following your breath, even though you're not labeling. You're kind of looking back at like, oh, was I concentrated? Or like, was I really with the breath? Or like, maybe I should, you know, you can fall into the same pit of like critiquing what just happened. So with this particular technique of these detailed descriptive labeling, really just allowing it to flow forth and kind of having this faith that like, whatever you say is just some description. And sometimes it might make no sense. And sometimes it might be inaccurate. And like, that's okay. And just being with whatever is right now and giving your best to describe that and then moving on instead of dwelling.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the tapeworm metaphor.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I actually found it really useful and encouraging.
Cool. Yeah. I'm glad. I was reluctant to share that one. Just because of the gross out factor. What did you like about it?
I appreciated this idea of needing to starve oneself in order to starve the thing that's like eating on us or that we want to be liberated from. And I also like the idea that, and I'm kind of playing around with what that actually means and how that could be perceived or interpreted in different ways. What does it mean to starve that part of ourselves enough to kind of like coax it out of us? Because some people have described the Monastic Academy as a deprivation tank or deprivation training center, and like that resonates with me. But how to do it intentionally is something that is really interesting to me. And then also the idea that there's a way to actually like pull it out of you, like pull out those parts that you're feeding and feeding and feeding but are never satiated. And I don't know if that's possible. I want that to be possible. I want it to be that simple, and I don't know if it actually is, but the metaphor itself was comforting. And do you think that's actually possible?
There's a lot there. Yeah, I think one thing that I just think is important to just say, which I just don't want there to be any confusion, is that I think it's important that we're not punishing ourselves. We're not like torturing ourselves. That's really not the point. But that sometimes when these patterns arise, it does feel like, whoa, this is really difficult. And this is like going through the fire to get to the other side and find safety, to get out of the burning building. So I want to make that clear. We're not flagellating or anything. No offense to those who find that to be a spiritual practice out there, but that's not what I was talking about. Yeah, I don't know. The pulling out thing, I'm a little on the fence about. I don't know. I mean, there's certainly like, I certainly believe in effort, that like this path, this practice, we put in effort. That's just part of it, is like we dedicate ourselves and we get up and we sit and we show up and we do it. So effort, yes. If it comes to like, I'm a little hesitant to like really advocate for like that we're going to like forcefully pull something out of ourselves. But yeah, maybe.
I think it was more like, can it be removed? Like, can that part of me that is insatiable be separated from the me that is satisfied? And can that be sustained? Like, is that?
I mean,
my question?
so my answer to that would be that I have tasted glimmers of that. I have experienced some extent that phenomena, not in its entirety by any means. So because I have experienced some of that happening, some of that occurring in terms of going beyond the addiction, I believe that it's possible that this path could lead to going completely beyond it. I cannot speak from that place of authority, and I don't pretend to. But, you know, if the teachings of the mystics of throughout history are to be believed, and particularly the Buddha, then the answer would be yes, that there is an end to suffering. That's one of the Four Noble Truths.
I think part of the answer to what you're asking is back to the Sheryl Crow statement in her song. You know, like if you practice appreciation and contentment, it'll sort of be taken care of. It'll quench that fire.
Yeah. Yeah, so again, if these teachings are to be are true, then the answer is yes.
You talked about effort. I am fond of effortlessness. The magic of that. What is that about? When something comes about effortlessly, and there's something about the contemplation within meditation that is effortless. And the tapeworm is not about effort, but actually effortlessness, that you can do a technique, as in fasting, and then attracting, and then what would be the word? Taking out.
So purging?
Without effort, without it being seen as effort. And when you continue to say, oh, this seems gross, that's the second horse. The second horse, right? You know what I'm talking about.
I don't know what the second horse is, but...
Okay. Last week we talked about the second.
Oh, sorry,
So,
I was not.
and in any case, if you add a thought about it,
Yeah.
then then there's effort. But if there is no thought about it, and you're just looking at the experience, and you're doing a technique that works, then you can then extract what is not you. But you're not feeding it. So if you don't feed it and keep looking at it and keep paying attention, and you're not adding anything, any thought about it, then, so in my experience just now, I had an experience of what I chose to do today and how it may or may not impact my roommate. This could be a big thing or a small thing, I have no idea. Or maybe I do. But what I'm trying to look at is there is my relationship with this other person and the boundaries that I want to honor is what I'm looking at. And if I add something else to it, then that's where the effort comes in. But if I just look at it, maybe and don't feed it, maybe then I can just have it. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Oh, right, that's it. It wasn't that. It wasn't that. It's just that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you understand what
I
said?
I got a lot out of what you said, and I think, yeah, I appreciate that. I don't know if yes, I appreciate what you said. I think what I would, how I would like maybe rephrase it in like a different way that is like very much the same thing that you're saying, but like in a slightly different way to look at it, that affirms what you're saying is like, so the term effort is kind of like a weird term. And to me, it's like effort is like, there's like a transcending the resistance to the effort. Like the taking an action effortfully does not have to include suffering. Like it can, but I guess in the way that I was using effort, it's not necessarily suffering. So it's like you're doing something that must be done. And if you resist it, if you add the story, like you're saying, that, oh, this is gross, or, oh, I don't like this, that's where the suffering comes in.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I have to like clean out the sink with all the food chunks in it, then like I can just do that. But if I get caught up in these stories of like, ooh, this is gross and I don't like how this feels, if I get pulled into that mental space where I'm resisting, then that's the suffering. But the effort is more just like, this is something that has to be done, I will do it. Like this sort of like willful action is more what I meant by effort. I like Shinzen's equation. He's such a left-brained person. He has suffering is pain times resistance. So in the general like cultural way of dealing with suffering, you would look at this equation and most people would try to reduce pain. And maybe the pain could be of all kinds, but the most obvious would be like taking like substances to like reduce something that doesn't feel good in your body. but there's all sorts of pain, not just like physical pain, but various things that are just difficult. But the other way to look at it is what you said, is to not add on the stories, not add on the resistance. So you can have pain, but if you drop the resistance, then you're reducing the suffering. And that way you don't have to, that's the unconditional happiness that I was referencing, in that we're going to have pain in our lives, whether that's instability, fear, heartache and loss. It could be physical pain, but we're going to have various types of pain in our lives. If we're constantly fighting to reduce that pain, then we're in the rat race, we're in the hamster wheel. And there are times when it's appropriate to reduce the pain, sure. But if that's the only thing we've got, then we're up a creek without a paddle. I won't go to the other way of saying that metaphor. But if we're able to find a way to reduce the resistance, that layering on of, oh, this is gross, I don't like this, I don't want to be here, this sucks, poor me, those people are jerks, I hate them. If we can reduce that resistance, then we're going to have a result of reducing the suffering as well. Thanks for the smile over there. That was nice.
I've just been meditating on fried butter.
Oh, God. Oh, man. Tapeworms, fried butter. What would Soryu say? I don't know. Jeez. I hope. Wow. Good. Any?
Can I go one step further?
Yes, but it has to be. How about is there like a 25-second one step further, or would that just not even do it service?
Possible.
Make it so.
That I was thinking about how I possibly overstepped boundaries today, and that I can, rationalize that. I could say, oh, well, because of this, I had to do that. It makes sense that, this and this and this, But if I just let all of that go, the rationalization, and just really look at what's underneath, is that there needs to be a clearer discussion of the boundaries that exist and why.
Mm-hmm.
That's more important than whether the boundary, it's not a big deal, by the way, but whether a boundary was overstepped, why it was overstepped, or any of that. It's almost like, oh, I am so grateful that this happened, because now I really get to the bottom of this and get that deeper out. Okay.
That's right. And that's what I think that to me speaks of an example of what I was talking about with these elaborate narratives that we get stuck in. So like if you're able to drop under this big story you have, then you can see, oh wow, like I'm just here open to figuring this out and coming to a mutually beneficial result. So yeah. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you all. If you want to talk to me more about any of this stuff, I'm happy to connect. Appreciate your being here. I was also just wanting to state that, I talked about the Monastic Academy a lot. I talked about this like contemplative leader thing, and I really feel strongly about that, but I also want to affirm that everybody here is, I believe, walking a path of contemplative practice, and everybody's in their own way embodying leadership too. So I just want to affirm everyone that I appreciate what you're doing, and I'm happy to be here with you. So thank you.